I mean, if you're planning on making this music career something besides a hobby, you should be doing this. And entrepreneurs do this. So if the good ones do, so that their business is scalable and can operate beyond just their individual capacity.
Yeah. And I think like, you know, especially if you're sitting here thinking like, how necessary is this for a music business or how necessary is this for your music career? Like, it's any business, man.
Any business.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast brought to you by Indepreneur.io.
What is up with it, my fellow independent creatives? Welcome back to the Creative Juice podcast. I'm your host, Circa. With me, as always, is Corrin out there in London. How's it going, Corrin?
It is going good. It's interesting because it's funny. Cirque is more adept at video things than I am. And
As of recent, that wasn't always true.
Right. But he's super slick now. So I feel the need to amp up my game. But when you're on the road, it can be very challenging. So I'm looking forward to us talking about that in the future. Because, you know, it's one thing to have a whole studio and have your set place as a musician where you can go to set up your video. But when you're on the road, it could be more difficult. And I am learning that trial by fire here. So... But it's been really great to travel London. We had an awesome time at the London meetup yesterday. So that was down at Bricklayers Arms, and nice little intimate crowd showed up. I was worried because we went to a pub, so I was worried it was going to be all loud and brash there. But in fact, it was actually pretty empty until we wrapped around 6:30. But a bunch of indies also came kind of late, so they stayed later. And I mean, I think that's something that people just need to remember is that like indies who network and work together win together, you know? And so it was cool to get FaceTime with some indies, but also for them to get FaceTime with each other. I think that's really kind of the coolest element of it. So it's been fun. It's been an adventure.
Yeah, I think anytime that you can meet another indie, especially another indie who's working on, building a business around their artwork and using our strategies, like that's great. My buddy Tucker here is in the office today, and he has his own company selling canvas paintings online, digital marketing, primarily digital marketing oriented, and we can talk about ads and all this stuff that, I mean, obviously Corrin and I could talk about ads, but it's cool to have someone in another space or, for you guys might be in another genre who you can share ideas with. Definitely cool to have some compadres around, not just online.
Right. Yeah, definitely. There's something about, too, just like the natural conversation that can happen and where things go, Even when I got there yesterday to the meetup, it's like, all right, let's just start talking about things and see where this goes. And some really cool lessons kind of came out of that whole thing. And you can't really do that without like just having that, let's sit down. We're not in a hurry. Let's just see what happens with this convo. And some really cool things can come out of that when you find like-minded people. So it definitely was a good time, man.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome to hear. Today, this episode is the final episode of our kind of entrepreneurial business building mindset and processes month, where we're kind of going over all the stuff that's not running ads and, creating email lists and even making music. This is the stuff that might seem less relevant to you as an artistic person, but I think especially as we go into the future, as an artistic person, you're also going to be a business person. And so it's good to know all this stuff. We've been over a lot this month, a lot of really useful stuff that we had to share. And this final episode, we just wanted to share how we work here at Indepreneur. Indepreneur started as just me. It grew to 3 employees in late 2017, and now we have 3 full-times and some contractors. And it's a bigger team now, but it's still very, very small. And every single week, or rather, should I say, like just listing off the responsibilities we have in a given month. every week we got to get this podcast out, both audio and video, which means it's got to be recorded, edited, mixed, and then we have to create pages and send out emails for that. The same is true for every piece of content on our YouTube channel, which we release a new video every single day. So there's, shooting and editing and color correcting and bouncing out files and bouncing out trailers and distributing that. Then we have Monday live stream in the group. We have Wednesday live stream for our Indie Pro members. We have all of the agency accounts that we're running, which is, I think it's up to like 10 now or something like that,
Right.
at one time concurrently. And then there's just a million other little tasks that go on every single week. And if we didn't have a way of working, I'm sure it would be a lot more difficult for us to get all of that done with such a small team. So in sharing kind of our systems and processes, how we keep our heads on straight, our hope is that you'll be able to not only get a lot more done as you're currently thinking, but also kind of change your thinking a little bit. Because I think what cripples people and their productivity, rather, so early on is their assumptions about what can be done and their assumptions about how much is a sane or safe or quote unquote healthy amount of work. Someone asked me in the group the other day if I think working 12 hours a day is healthy. And I kind of had to ask them, like, what's our definition of health here? Like, do you mean, like, am I going to develop a pathology from it? Probably not.
Right.
And I think that speaks to the presumption that a lot of people have. A lot of people never start a business. And they think that the amount of work they put in at their 9 to 5 is what they're capable of at maximum capacity. And I don't think that's true.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also too, like, I mean, in theory, you're doing this because you love it. And that's one thing that inspired me back in episode, I want to say 76, 75, but we'll put a link in the show notes. But when we were talking to Jesse Gilmwater's Basic Printer about his launch stuff and his messaging, and he was like, it's one thing to find the music fun, right? But the work, the learning about the tech, the integrating all of these systems together, like the FitFun, right? Just like figuring this stuff out. And he finds, I mean, I think he genuinely finds like 99% of it fun,
Yeah.
And, how many businesses are there that aren't music businesses where the guys are, like, oh, I just want to bake bread. I want to have this bakery. I love making cakes and, breads and things, but I don't want to market my business, But
Right.
That's the age we live in right now. If you want to start a small business, you have to do these things. And hopefully you're actually not just having to do these things, but enjoying doing these things. So if you're working 12 hours a day on your music, first off, that's awesome that you can work 12 hours a day on your music if you want to. But I don't think that there's a cross in the line where like you love what you do. And so is it all work or is it like some personal development and things you love mixed together? So I think that's a tough question to just answer, But, what's that quote, Cirque, about entrepreneurs like wanting to work? You work 80 hours a week for yourself so you don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else or whatever it is, right? Isn't that
Right.
what the quote is? So
Yeah.
I think that's the answer to the question.
Yeah. I mean, I like having the freedom to do, kind of whatever. I mean, obviously, like my own self-preservation motives are going to keep me from doing whatever, quote unquote. But being able to choose, what I work on and how I work, especially for my attention deficit addled mind, is super beneficial. And it means that I can work far more than I ever could work when I was working for agencies. Like
Right.
I would slack off at the agency, right? Back when I
Right.
worked for some tech agencies, just because like it's, someone's telling me what to do and I don't think that they know what I should be doing better than I do. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely worth it. And not to say that I didn't learn anything at that agency, and certainly the way we work here at Indepreneur is largely inspired by those tech agencies that I worked at before Indepreneur. And so we've carried over a lot of their systems and processes that work for them and allowed them to get a lot done, even though it wasn't necessarily my passion. In the last episode, we talked about kind of planning out your year and programming your path. And we talked a lot about getting those big chunky projects out there on paper so What are your big goals for the year? And then you break down to the smaller ones. And that's going to inform kind of the lead in for how we work, which is, most of our business, whether it be our website or the marketing, the front end marketing that we're doing to get new customers into Indie Pro, or whether it be the agency or whether it be, our testing grounds artists. All of those are individualized projects. Every project has its own team. It has its own board in Asana, our task management application. And that really gives us this like itemized focus, right? So we might have multiple tasks to do each week for a given project, but it's really, really siloed out so that we know, okay, who am I working with on this project? What are the major deliverables for this project? And where can I find all information related to this project? So the top level of our organization has to do with teams and projects. What are the major things that need to get done or need to be worked on a consistent basis? How do we delineate them? And then what are the teams that work on those things? For you, you might want to get an album done this year. And that might be one project, this new LP that you're working on. The team for that is probably going to be different than the team that you have for marketing that album. So the team for that is going to be your engineers, your co-writers, right? Your band or any instrumentalists who are working on that album. They're all one team. They have their own set of tasks. They have their own definition of done for that project. And that allows you to really kind of, I would say, organize or compartmentalize everything going on in your life and your career down to a science. And that's the top level of how we organize.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, like, also it helps to know who's on multiple projects, we meet every day, but we kind of know like, okay, who in the team is on these different things, because the more things that you're managing, the harder you can remember, like, okay, who did we assign this or that thing to, So I think it kind of helps you check in, like, especially as we have these contractors coming on and more part-time employees. And it's just good to know, like, okay, who's covering what to make sure the ball doesn't get dropped. And then also, making sure that the team is built out with people who kind of know all of these different pieces at the different levels and know where everyone else is at so that they can coordinate, right? And be this like attack force in a flying V and going after the project. So I think that's something that's really been very beneficial for us, is just having these different silos of concentration. And not only can we concentrate on our tasks better that way, but also we know, like, okay, who's the next in line to cover this thing behind me, and knowing who that person is, so you can get things done faster.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you can save yourself a lot of headache down the road just by knowing what are the major kind of columns of responsibility in your career or in your business, and then making sure you know who the personnel is that's responsible for the delivery of those projects, those columns of responsibility. So that's kind of the top level, which allows us to then run what we call sprints. And sprints are really, I would say, like, if you're going to blame somebody for the fact that we're able to get anything done, it's the sprint model. And this was a concept originated by, I believe, some of the folks at Google. There's an awesome book called Sprint that you can read, but it's basically a model where, you consolidate your week down, or you take a very, very focused approach to a given week for a given project. So instead of trying to do like a million different unrelated tasks for a project in a given week, your goal is to kind of condense that down into only tasks that are heavily related to each other for that week. So for every single project in our business, we have a 4-hour sprint planned at the beginning of every single week. So, for example, this week I'm sprinting on our upcoming training, the Content Blitz Blueprint, where we're going to be going over live streaming, vlogging, and starting a podcast. So if you're an artist, you need recurring content. You need a way to, communicate with your audience every single week. And we're going to be covering those kind of channels of recurring content. I have to get training done for that training. I have to get some of the lessons done. So I have a 4-hour sprint this week that is dedicated to editing those lessons to be prepared for release. And, I could be maybe shooting one lesson and editing another and, coming up with the copy for another lesson or working on graphics for another. But instead, I'm only editing, which keeps me in Premiere Pro. It keeps me from context switching throughout the week. And I know what I have to ship for that given project.
Yeah. I mean, and that all boils back to what we've talked about before with context switch, right? Like having to change your mind from, okay, this is the thing I'm doing right now to this is the other thing I'm doing. And it's difficult because you have projects where you're like, okay, and we say this all the time, there's a whale and you're only going to be able to bite it, eat it one bite at a time. That's the only way that you're going to conquer it.
Yeah.
However, sometimes it's good to like put a whole pile of blubber on your plate, like away from the rest of the whale, and then eat that one bite at a time, so you're breaking your big blubber bite into little bites, right? So that's a disgusting analogy, especially if you're vegan. I'm so sorry for that, but it's disgusting for all of us, really. But but that's kind of the idea is that, okay, and we when we were talking about how the, planning your year and then breaking into subtasks and then breaking that into subtasks, right? It's the same kind of thing. And Cirque has done a better job with this starting in the new year than I have, where essentially he's like, okay, I have these blocks of the day. Like these are the things that, like he's got a training block. We're going to be creating trainings every single month this year, pretty much, almost. So, he knows like I might as well just put 4 hours a day or whatever it is, where I'm going to be doing that thing. And I'm going to have a 2-hour block where I'm worried about content or whatever it is. And you can do the same thing with your music tasks to make sure that, firstly, you're not running behind on anything, but also that you're not having to like change the context of what you're talking about from 10-minute task to 10-minute task. Like take, 3 hours of the day. If you have a new album and you're like, okay, in 18 months, I want to put out my next record. Like you should be songwriting every single day. You should be practicing your craft every single day. You should be, doing the things that are going to lead up to that whale being eaten way out there, but not so subtasked that you're just constantly trying to figure out, okay, what am I working on right now? Like you're kind of in the same mode for that period of time. Like Cirque, if Cirque were going to bring a weight training analogy into it, he'd be like, there's leg day and there's arm day or whatever it is, right? Like what are your workout days, Cirque? Like, that's the first thing I thought of when I started talking about it.
Totally. Well, so this is kind of where it comes back into view, and I kind of got to backpedal here for a second to just kind of say that most software teams, most teams that are building software work in this methodology, not necessarily the sprint quote unquote methodology, but what's called agile-scrum, which the scrum is the work week. There is a scrum master who's responsible for communicating tasks to everybody and having the morning meetings.
Scrum
master.
The
scrum master. Yeah. They're just like kind of the manager for the whole software team, making sure that they know what their tasks are, that everything's written down from the meetings. So the scrum master manages the whole scrum. And then the point of agile scrum is not only to deliver things quickly and on a continuous basis, but to also improve the process by which those things are completed every single week. So scrum is really about, being able to run this process every week, and every week the process itself gets better. So we work in what you might consider agile sprint, where instead of running the scrum, we're using the sprint methodology. Sprints have a few benefits to them. Originally the sprint concept was, hey, everyone at Google who's in this department, cancel all your meetings for the week. We're going to sprint on this one goal, and everyone's going to be focused on just that. No calls, no other tasks until it's done. Yeah. Now, we're kind of modifying that. We're bastardizing both the sprint methodology and the agile scrum methodology into something that works for us, right?
Right.
So with the sprints, what we really get to do is, number one, we have all of the projects itemized. So you might think, someone who's not running this might go to plan their week and have to think about all the things that they need to get done. They're not thinking about all the things they need to get done for a given project, right? They're thinking
Right.
about all of the projects that they're working on and kind of just like loosely, brainstorming the things that are closest to the fire, right? But
Yeah.
that's not a very efficient way to do it. So by first of all siloing these columns of responsibility, these projects, we can visit each project when it comes to plan the week and say what needs to get done for this project. And so that's kind of a major benefit is when it comes to planning, we can touch every single project with a sprint. Every single project gets a 4-hour sprint so that there's always movement on all of our goals. And then knowing the teams, we know who we can spin off tasks to. We know where we can get help for each project. And then another thing that sprints really help with is batching. So just like we talked about, context switching is what murders people, right? If you have to hop in and out of 6 different softwares to get done your workday, it's going to be a lot more difficult than if you're spending the entire day in 1 or 2 softwares. So the hotkeys you're using, the menus you're using, this method of working is different for every program, every type of task that you could be working in. And that's why batching your tasks and planning out sprints rigidly so that you're doing very related tasks in a given sprint is so useful. So that's one of the many, many reasons why sprints are so helpful. So we're using that agile-scrum continuous delivery model where we're improving the sprint method every single week, but we are running what are known as sprints. So every project gets a sprint. And when clients sign up to our agency, what they're really buying is sprint time. They're buying a sprint in our business every single week. So they have a 4-hour sprint dedicated to what they need done every single week by one of our agency technicians. And that makes it a lot easier. We're not doing fixed bid. We're not saying, hey, we'll build you a website for X amount of dollars. It's like you get that sprint time. And, depending on the features you want for a given build, depending on what you need, we could spin out how many hours that's going to take or how many sprints it's going to take. And we've productized some of our sprints. So running a fan finder sprint is a thing in our IndieX agency. If someone says, I don't have any fan base, I need to jack up those numbers in terms of actual engaged listeners, then we're going to run a fan finder sprint for them. And that really tells our agency technicians exactly what they have to do. And it's run very, very cleanly. So that's kind of the benefit to sprint methodology and kind of an explanation of how we've used these kinds of concepts from software development teams and mashed them into something that works for us as creatives.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, too, something, especially me, but probably all of us, this is not something that I execute perfectly. And something that helps our team a lot is posting, like, we have a channel for stand-ups, right? Where every day we are like, here's what I'm going to do today, and here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. And then we meet, or here's what I did yesterday, excuse me. So here's what we're going to do today, and here's what I did yesterday. And that's all in the stand-up channel. And we talk about it at our morning meeting. Now, the thing is, it's very difficult to figure out what am I going to do today if you don't have the week broken down into like the bigger chunks, the silos of project. And Cirque is constantly like, you're going to feel a lot better if you just plan your damn sprint. Because sometimes it's like one of my New Year's resolutions, like get on top of my sprints, like get my week planned so that I know like what are the big chunks of things that I need to deliver in the next week so that each day I'm not, assigning more time to a task than I should or revisiting a task that really I could have, been more aggressive about and completed if I had been focused. Like that's something that I'm constantly learning from. And so as we give you these things, and it's just like we've been saying all month, you're not going to execute any of this stuff perfectly. There's also going to be some tasks that you were like, oh yeah, these will go together because they're music and these will go together because they're, something else, they're tech or whatever. Or this is, but as you kind of plan these sprints out and execute these tasks, you might realize like, oh, hey, I'm actually in this software a lot more for my social media creation, like more than I was expecting. And it actually ties really closely to something I had in a completely different categorization. Like I'm in Premiere Pro doing video for my social media content, but then also for my YouTube development or whatever it is that you're working on. So as things move and shift over time, move those things around. Like take note of what tools you're using, what tabs you're using, right? Like When I log into Chrome, it automatically opens like our support channel, our Facebook group, MailChimp, and it's like all of these things automatically open first thing in the morning. And so that I kind of know like, okay, this is the first block, can't mess that up. So yeah, like just, take an assessment of the tools that you're using and the different websites you're using. And that way, when you go to plan out your sprints, you can adjust and become smarter. And so each week, like, okay, what can I realistically chunk off? But also, what tasks are similar enough to each other where it might make sense to batch them together?
Yeah, sprint planning is something that I also want to do a lot more this year. It's so much easier. Like every time I go to write my stand-up, and we'll talk about stand-up meetings, which is another part of how we work.
Yeah, sorry, I skipped it.
No, it's fine. But yeah, like I'll go to plan my stand-up, which is like what I'm doing today. And there are tons of things that I know that I have to get done today because they happen every week on that day.
Right.
But then there are just like blocks of time where I could get something that's like high impact or very necessary done, but I don't know what those things are because they're buried in a sauna somewhere, and I'm fumbling through them. So one of the meetings that we have every single week is called demo. Now, demo is obviously short for demonstration. This is something we borrowed from those tech agencies I worked with, which is those tech agencies would meet with their clients because they're building mobile apps for them. So they meet with their clients every week on Friday to talk about what features and fixes they made on this app over the last week. So the client gets to review all of their work, and then they plan out the next sprint. And that's where sprint planning takes place. For every single client in our agency, they get a demo meeting. We're doing a team demo meeting, which we could also do more of this year and definitely should, where we're giving ourselves that time to plan out our sprints pretty rigidly. But this gives us a chance to go into Asana, visit each board that we're a team member on, and see what the relevant tasks are, what's in the backlog, what's on deck, what can we run. And then plan out our sprint efficiently. And what that allows me to do is when I'm coming in the office every morning, and I'm posting my stand-up or my duties for the day, I'm referencing that sprint plan. So I'm crossing things off that sprint plan throughout the week. And, even if I don't get it all done, I at least know what I didn't get done. I at least know, what I wanted to do. So it's super, super helpful. Something that, I think we're all trying to do more of this year just because it's such a good organizational tool. So so we've gone over teams, projects, sprints, and now demos, the demo meeting. For every project that has a unique team for it in your business or in your career or in your life, you should try to have a weekly demo meeting. It's very, very helpful and helps you keep organized with your team so everyone knows what's going on. And God forbid, if you guys didn't communicate all week, you would still be able to run pretty efficiently.
Right. Yeah, I think too, that's another thing is, and this kind of goes back to the question that Cirque was trying to answer in the group, earlier was, do I have to work 12 hours? And there, you'd be one of two types of people, right? You could be like me and Cirque, who are like, yeah, I'm going to do all of these million things. I'm a superhuman. Didn't you know? And like, this is all this week, Or you might be, and like, there's no way you're actually going to get it done. And so but then again, so it's not a fail just because you didn't finish all that stuff. It just lets you know what things might be at the top of your list next week. But then you may be the type of person who totally overestimates time. And maybe you think you're not going to be as quick at something, but as you get better at it, you do become quicker. And so your sprints will actually be too little of a load. And so at the end of the day, what you can do, since you have your whole week planned, not just by day, you can look at the next thing on the list for the week and take the next thing off the bottom of the things that you didn't start on today, but you had planned for tomorrow. Now, or if you're like, I don't want to work 12 hours a day, you can stop there, and you're probably going to be one of those two people. You're probably either going to plan way too many things and just think that you are Wonder Woman today and you're going to get everything done in this week that is totally unreasonable. Or you might be someone who is like, I'm an idiot and I can't do anything, which hopefully your confidence will build after you apply some productivity like we've been talking about this month. But, you might be somebody who's like, I probably can't do that. And you might get it done early, So, but without that, and it's like Cirque was saying last week, like the only bar to kind of evaluate yourself is yourself. And so if you don't do these kind of sprint and then daily breakdown plans, you don't really know how much better you got, or, if you are getting faster at things, you're not really going to know. So I think that's another reason why it's really good to keep track of it, is because you can also, it just kind of gives you a boost. It gives you more confidence in the things that you've been working so hard to learn from all these trainings and integrate. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think even if you're just, a team of one, this stuff helps you out and it helps you get prepared. Even when I was a team of one, this is how I ran things, and it definitely kept me a lot more organized. And speaking of which, now that we have a team, it's important that our processes get better every single sprint, every single week, every single month. We're improving on how we work. So all of this stuff is flexible. Every single part of it is flexible. If it doesn't work for us, we need to throw it out, or we need to figure out a better way of doing it. So every week on Friday, we have an end-of-week retrospective meeting, which is in addition to the demo meetings. Retro is where the entire team meets and kind of lists some successes from the week so that we can celebrate each other's wins, but then also list some major difficulties, and we talk about action items for making sure they don't happen again. So we'll list a couple of positives, a couple of negatives, and an action item for each negative. That action item should inspire some change to the way we're working or what we're doing to ensure that we don't have that come up at retro ever again. That's really the point of retro, is to kind of eliminate the inefficiencies or change how we work over time. And a lot of what we do here at Indepreneur has been born out of the result of a retro meeting where the action item was, hey, let's do this differently. Let's do this a different way from now on. Some of our hires were even made that way, where it's like, we need someone to do this because, it's too much. So retro meetings are another weekly meeting you can have that will completely change your trajectory, right? It makes you better and more efficient every single week, changes your whole way of operating every week. And that's definitely one of the more powerful things that you can install in your team or your career.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny because I didn't really do agile, scrum, sprint, all those buzzy words. I didn't do any of that before I came to Indepreneur, and Cirque taught me about that stuff. And I was doing kind of a form of it just because I used Asana before I came to Indepreneur. So it was kind of making me do some of that just by nature of the beast. Like, it was just kind of doing a little bit of that for me. But I learned a lot about how much I can get done in a day if I just have a checklist of the things that I'm doing. And it can be difficult to think of your life as a checklist, but once you get the hang of it, it definitely makes you more efficient. And also just, again, like we've talked about earlier this month, like being able to shut off your brain, trust where things are, and know that if you're not concentrating on it because you're going out with your friends to dinner that night, you're not going to get totally thrown off your game and like, okay, where was I? So yeah, I agree. I think that it's something, even as a team of one, and then applying what I've learned doing this with Indepreneur to my own music stuff, I have felt far more confident in the things that I'm building for my own music brand, which, that's really just happening more in my off time than all of the stuff I'm doing with Indepreneur. But nonetheless, I can get it knocked out, And so I think that that's something that if you can just get into it, and if you Google this stuff, there's a ton of information out there. I think Cirque probably has some great referrals for understanding more about how this works and the psychology of it. If you want to dig deep, we can put a link in the show notes to some recommendations for checking it out on a deeper level too.
Definitely. Yeah. A book that is definitely a must read is Sprint. I think Digital Marketer actually just recommended it for their reading list.
Funny.
But yeah,
don't rip them off now.
Yeah, yeah. I read Sprint actually like after working with those agencies, long after starting Indepreneur. I finally read the book, and it definitely gave me a lot of insights. Obviously, the way that we've used sprints as a concept is way different than the way they did at Google, where they kind of said like, okay, we have this problem. Let's shut down the entire team's extra work, anything that's not this, let's shut it down for a week or 2 weeks, and we are going to work until we have a solution. Very interesting idea, but I think we kind of have a per project kind of way of doing that, where it's like everything that's not this like itemized goal for this project has to wait, right? So we're kind of shuffling things into a focused narrative. That's really, really helpful. And it's made all the more helpful by being able to meet once a week, plan out those sprints, being able to meet once a week and improve how those sprints run, and then being able to meet every single day. Now, if you're just a team of one, this is going to be obviously a lot different for you, because the morning meeting that we have is called stand-ups. And really it's called that because it started off as, let's stand up at our meeting table. Everyone stands and reports the tasks they completed yesterday and the tasks they're going to complete today out of their sprint. Now, we don't stand up, you know, but I think it kind of shows you why this meeting is. The stand-up meeting, they stand up because they don't want you saying a whole lot besides what those things, what you have to do today and what you did yesterday. So everyone's standing up because they want to sit down. And that way they're not going to include a whole lot of other information. They're going to stay focused on those stand-up goals. It gives the team, you know, a way of reporting to each other what they're doing and if they need any help. So the main items for stand-ups are we go around in a circle and we say, what I did yesterday, what I'm going to do today, and if I have any blockers. And blockers are, you know, oh, I can't send that email because Greg didn't give me the graphic yet. So Greg is blocking me. And you list your blockers so that Greg knows, hey, first thing you do today, you have to clear that blocker for me. Otherwise, I can't do my job. Yeah,
you're impacting more than one person at that point, or more than one piece of the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Blockers kill software teams. They're not so heavy with us. We kind of do a good job of working in a silo to a degree, but as we grow as a company, we're going to get more and more blockers. I blocked Corrin today on shipping our new indie gear, kind of surprise announcement that's probably already
just
out
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
The best part of any Creative Juice episode is right in the middle. That's where the surprises are housed.
Obviously, only our Indie Pro members are going to know about that for some time, but I blocked her on that today. And I have to clear that blocker by the end of the day, otherwise she can't ship what she needs to ship. So there is an important concept there, but the stand-up meeting is really, you want to keep it short, so that's why people stand up, so that people don't start to dread it, right? It should be an energizing moment where you're kind of listing off what your day is going to be. Now, even if you're a team of one, you can get up and kind of go over the things you're going to do today and give yourself a little pep talk. I know that might sound silly or stupid to some people, but like I certainly need it sometimes and do it myself.
It could be a cool journaling opportunity for you as a musician as well, which does the same thing as cataloging Asana, right? Like you can look back and be like, man, you know, I can't believe how much I was struggling with this just 3 months ago, and now I'm a ninja, you know? So even if you just do that every day and get into the habit of it, it's just like, you know, like my mom, when she wakes up, she drinks like a huge glass of room temperature water. She does it every morning because otherwise she won't drink water all day. And she's like, I need water. So if I don't do it right in the morning, it ain't going to happen. And so the same thing, like just add it to your morning routine. All right, this is the thing I do before I get started, so that you always kind of know where things are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it also, it reminds you, if you're working on a team, that everyone else is out there delivering stuff, holds you more accountable, right? Like
for sure.
When Jack lists off his mega stand-up or Corrin lists off her mega stand-up, I know I've got to get stuff done too. Otherwise, I'm letting down people who are working very, very hard.
Dude, when Jack lists off his stand-ups, I'm like, bro, are you good? Like, it happened the last couple of days. And it's just funny that you mentioned it, because I literally thought that to myself when Jack did his stand-ups the last couple of days especially, but, you know, all the time. But the last couple of days, because he's working on so many accounts, it just like the focus that he has to be like, okay, this on all these accounts. But it goes to show like the fact that he's getting like, when Jack comes to a stand-up and says, yesterday I intended to do this, but I didn't get that done, is very rare. Like, he gets a lot of stuff done. And it also sounds like a lot more because it's so many different projects. He doesn't get to silo as much as Circa and I do, which, sorry, Jack, like that's part of the beast and agency. But it goes to show that he can list off this crazy number of things that sounds like, whoa, but he gets it done, you know? So it's definitely, every time Jack lists his stand-ups, I'm like, do I have enough scheduled for today? Like, am I pulling my weight today? Because it's always just like, damn.
So it's definitely super helpful. And I like the stand-up meeting because I used to work for a company where like their answer for everything was to have a meeting about it, right? Like, okay, we want to do this. Let's have a meeting about it. Well, let's plan at that meeting another meeting to kick the can further down the road, and like nothing got done ever. And there's some awesome materials out there by some very successful business people who have kind of talked about how if a meeting happens in your company, one, it should be well known if people have to contribute, what they have to contribute, so that no one's out there spitballing ideas or speaking out of turn. And you should feel safe in commanding the meeting, right? So like if it's for you to deliver information to a team, then they should know about it before they show up. You should not excuse lateness. So if they're late, they can't come in. And he talks about how meetings suck. Like meetings are terrible as a business concept. And I would agree, like if you're meeting with people, you're not getting things done. So either you're delivering information or you're receiving information, which most often can be done in a private conversation. Other people don't need to be there. So in a company, if you want to get a lot done, you've got to be respectful of people's time. And so it's cool to have that impetus on the meeting of let's keep this short and get the relevant info out there and know what it's for, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think my favorite thing about stand-ups is that we're a largely remote team. Not as much now, which is awesome. You know, we've got Kenny in the office and, you know, Cup and Iggy are both there, you know, in and out. And Ed comes in, right, Cirque? Ed Asola?
No.
Oh, he doesn't. Oh, okay.
He does not.
Yeah.
No.
So we're kind of, and, you know, Cirque's in Orlando. I'm in Nashville. And Jack is up near like the DC area. So like, it's really, if we didn't do this, we wouldn't be able to, first off, like, we wouldn't really talk to each other because we've got so much going on. But also, it's the opportunity where if anyone's feeling kind of behind, you know, or they're having a tough day, or just need like a pep talk, or, you know, whatever, like whoever is most positive that day tends to bleed into everybody else's moods, you know?
Yeah.
And so when Cirque comes on Monday morning, hype, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Like, I just get really excited. So, and amongst each of us, there's always at least one person who's like hype on today, which is perfect. You know, so I think that can be something that's really helpful with your team, is to just keep things really positive. And if you touch base, you can kind of bleed that positivity into the people working with and for you. So if you're in a band, you know, be that guy, like be the contagious positive person, you know, and feel like that accountability is a positive thing and it can be contagious.
Definitely. Yeah. And then so we've gone over teams, projects, sprints, demos, retros, and stand-ups. The last thing that I want to cover before we close out Entrepreneurial Mindset and Processes Month is that is SOPs, which is really our trainings in our Indie Pro membership area are based on SOPs, you know, strategic operation plans or, you know, standard operating procedures. If you're in the military, really what these are is just checklists, right? Step by step. How do I do this thing? Now, a checklist, if you give it to someone who knows a lot about what you're doing, you might leave out certain granular details so that, you know, you're kind of shorthanding it. You don't have to write as much because they kind of get the idea. Right. What we try to do is build SOPs that can be run by anybody, even if it's going to be handed off to someone who already knows a lot of those details. Right. And we don't do it enough, but like, you know, all of this stuff we don't do enough or like as much as we could. We're doing our best, and that trends us towards better. Right. But with SOPs, we try to, any recurring task in our business, anything that's going to be done a lot of times over the next couple of years, we try to create an SOP for it, which is really just a card in Asana that has all these subtasks that walk you through how to do any given thing in our business. Yeah. And starting to do that is really important for you, especially if you're in a band or you plan on building out a team eventually. You want to be able to hand off really, really difficult, complex tasks to somebody. And if you don't start making SOPs, you're not going to start sitting down with that person and teaching it to them, and they're not going to start remembering everything you said. So having that SOP is going to save you a crap load of time, make you less afraid to hire, less afraid to bring on your band members to work on the business side of it. So you're going to massively expand your capability if you start to take the things that happen regularly and make an SOP for them.
Yeah. And I mean, it is something that the military, we do that. It's funny. The last band I was in the military before I left was called -10, which was like anytime there was a manual for something, it'd be, so like if you want to learn how to use the M249, which is an automatic belt-fed machine gun, if you wanted to figure out how to do that, you would open the -10 user manual, which is like the basic manual, right? And that was a tongue-in-cheek thing about how we didn't use a bunch of backing tracks. We were a very organic kind of rock band. So for us, that meant something. But for everybody else, they're like, what's that, But it's kind of crazy. Like if you open the SOP of that machine gun, you literally could have no training and not have handled it before ever and learn how to operate that machine gun. Which is scary, but also, that's the point of it. So it could get to the point where it was like, how dumb do you think people are really that are reading this? Some of it was like way too basic and just like kind of almost insulting your intelligence. But that is the idea, is that like if you go into Indepreneur training, it's really just a video version of an SOP, where we're just basically like, here are the steps to accomplish these things. And, we try to obviously also expand on the why, right? Not just the how, but the why and what we're trying to accomplish and, all of those things so that then you can take this SOP and change it to do these other creative things that you want to do. But the SOP isn't really speaking to that. The SOP speaks to this is how you get it done. If you've never touched it before, now you're going to be able to do it. And I think that's, if you
it also makes you better at doing it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
By granularly filling it in, like you'll get better, even if it's something you do every day.
Right. Like we were talking about last week, how if you make this list and then you follow that while you're still learning it, and every time you do it, you reference that SOP, then you're doing it the same time every time. And that way, when you repeat the tasks over and over, pretty soon you won't need that checklist anymore. I still use some checklists for when I'm setting up different things just to make sure, especially like with an ad campaign, things can go wrong. You can forget like, oh crap, I need to filter out my countries or, you know what I mean? Like you never know which one of those little settings in the campaign you're going to forget. So, it's definitely, I still revisit certain my restricted countries list. I definitely don't do that by memory. That's a list, So by creating these different SOPs, it not only enables me to make this list and learn it better, but also if anyone asks me, about a task that I do, I can reference this list and not have to research in my brain, So that way it's like, oh, you need the answer to this? I got a spreadsheet right here where I keep my information about the thing you said, and that's like an SOP. So it definitely makes things easier on you and your brain if you're a party of one. And it definitely helps you train other people. Right now in London, I'm working with one of our IndieX clients, Kovic. His band is consisting of 3 people, and they've got some other team members that are working different things for them as well. But if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see behind me, there's an absolutely giant whiteboard that would make even Circa jealous that they just got. And they got into Asana this week, and that's been the thing that I've been working with them on while we've been here, is their productivity and management of the different bandmates doing different things for this business, because largely it's been, one or two of them doing everything. And so now they're like, well, how do we delegate these different things? And we've spent a good portion of this week figuring out these SOPs so that somebody who hasn't done it before can pick it up and open up, somebody else to do something else that they might already be good at. So it's definitely beneficial, and it's scalable. Like, you might think like, wow, you guys are doing the most. You're doing the most for a team of 3 full-time people with some, subsidiary employees and part-time employees and contractors. And it's like, yeah, but when we get to the point where this company is 100 employees, it won't have to change. We'll be able to do the exact same stuff, but we'll be doing it better because we had a retro fixing the stuff that came up short all this time, So it's definitely worth it. I mean, if you're planning on making this music career something besides a hobby, you should be doing this. And entrepreneurs do this. So if the good ones do, so that their business is scalable and can operate beyond just their individual capacity.
Yeah. And I think especially if you're sitting here thinking like, how necessary is this for a music business, or how necessary is this for your music career? Like, it's any business, man.
Any business. Don't delineate. Yeah, just stop delineating like a term of music in front of things. Like, just don't even worry about that.
Yeah.
Like, look at the winners in life and follow it. Like, look at that.
Yeah, like Corrin's out there in London right now with one of our IndieX clients who has a team behind him and has, all of this infrastructure. And guess what? This is what they're doing, right? So it should show you that if you're going to reach your goal, you're going to tread through these waters, and we're kind of just trying to give you the tools that are going to make it a lot easier. I did an SOP. The most recent SOP I did, besides the training I'm building right now, was for our newest part-timer, Kenny, as our support specialist. Now, I wanted Kenny to be able to reset the Indies live. So our Indie Pro members, we go live with them every single week to answer their questions, make sure that they have all their needs met in setting up these campaigns. And every week we have to create a new YouTube live event, post the old video on a new page in our WordPress site. We have to change out copy. We have to change out so much stuff. And you might think about that and say, well, in order for Kenny to be able to do that, I need to teach him how WordPress works. I need to teach him how YouTube Live works. He's never used these platforms before. But actually, I don't, right? I just need to create an SOP for this task. And a lot of what he needs to know about how WordPress works and about how YouTube Live works, he's going to learn by doing it. So I could go out there and try to teach him everything and then dial backwards. But at the end of the day, he's still going to need that SOP. So it's just has all the advantages to it in terms of offloading a task. And now it's going to be easier, to teach him how to do another task in WordPress because he's familiar with the platform now. And so I think you should learn by doing, and the best way to build up the skills of someone on your team is to teach them by doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when Cirque asked me to do the first Indies Live that I did, and I think I've done fewer than anyone on the team. And he was like, okay, here's this OBS stuff. Here's how you go live. Here's how you connect your different stuff or whatever. And when he first said hey, are you ready to dig into doing some lives? I was like, ooh. I'll be honest, I was pensive, and it's not because I don't want to talk to you guys and see your stuff. It's that video and especially live things make me very, very nervous. I think I've talked about this before, which is something that I'm trying to train out of myself. But something that helped a ton was that Cirque just gave me this SOP. I didn't have to figure out a whole lot about how OBS works or figure out too much about how to, get into YouTube Live and get into the Creator Studio and, do all this stuff. I didn't really have to figure that much out. I just followed this list. And now I'll be honest, I still reference that list. And it's probably because I haven't done as many lives as Cirque and Jack. But nonetheless, when I go to do it, I don't feel my blood pressure raised by 35 freaking beats. You know what I mean? It's not so stressful. And, like I said, some of its stress might just be my anxiety about going live, but It also is just, making sure that you're prepared to execute something, especially when it needs to happen in a timely fashion. So whether that's live or whether that's pressing go on a MailChimp campaign or whether it's pressing the on button on a Facebook ad campaign, like you want to make sure everything's right first. And if you followed a checklist, you don't even have to go back and check. You know you did because you did it step by step the exact same way. And you couldn't have screwed it up unless you skipped something, So I think that's something that a checklist is really valuable for. You don't have to go back and check your work. You just go through it once and it's done.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's like it seems like the thing that's going to take the longest amount of time and ends up being the thing that saves you the most amount of time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, like SOPs, 100% recommend that you create SOPs for anything that you have to do repeatedly or anything that you have to do a lot of times in a given month. Those are all candidates for SOPs.
Yeah, I've definitely done that thing where it's like, I know I need to do this thing, and how did I do this the last time I was in here? Because some of the tools you use aren't tools you use commonly. So I've definitely done that where I'm like, I'm like looking through a menu of something or looking through the settings on something. I'm like, how did I do this last time? And sometimes it's because they changed the platform on you. They're like, ooh, we have these cool new features. And now that menu you used to go to all the time is now in a completely different place and you can't find it. Sometimes it's that. But a lot of the time, it's more just that you, even though you have this checklist, you may not use it frequently enough for it to become memory. So imagine if you had to do it without a list, without the checklist of how to do it. Like, you're definitely not going to do it efficiently. In terms of like getting things done, having that SOP for me has just been like on the money.
So here's what you should do, okay? If you listen to our last episode, you already know about programming your pathway, planning out your year, which is something that you should get done before we hit February. So if you're listening to this now, you still got, probably 12 hours to do that, right? And really, you don't need to put any more weight on it than those 12 hours you have, because guess what? It's going to change, right? What's important is that you get something out there that can be iterated on. And then now you know what the major recurring or ongoing and one-off projects are in your career, in your business, in where you want to go. So you've got that mapped out across a year. Then you want to figure out what are the teams that are going to help me around this, even if it's just you. So you might have only one collaborator and they might only be helping with half of the projects, but you want to know who that is and you want to know what those projects are that they're going to be helping you with. Then you should start putting all of your kind of breaking down those chunky goals into need to do's across the year. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to populate your sprints every week. So, maybe you can plan for next week or the week after that to be your first sprint. You're going to plan out that sprint. You're going to know exactly what projects you're shipping or completing tasks for in that sprint. And then you're going to want to have a demo meeting or a demo/retro if it's just you. You can not only do your sprint planning and your review of what you got done, but you can also use that time to reflect on the week, how it went, and, come up with any action items for things you'd like to go better. And then if you've got a team or even if you just need to psych yourself up every morning, you should be doing your morning stand-ups. Try to have it be at a regular time every morning so that you're syncing your sleep schedule and you're not behaving like in this false way that they say artists have to behave, where you're not getting any sleep, you have no regularity to your life, and you just can't get anything done. Which is a big, big myth. And then for anything that comes up that you have to do repeatedly, take some time, earmark some time in a given sprint to create an SOP or a step-by-step granular checklist for how to get that thing done, which is going to prepare you for building a team. It's going to make it easier to complete that task, and you'll probably learn something about the task, ways you could do it more efficiently. So getting all that out there is of primary importance. It's going to make your year the most productive year that you've ever had. And if you want like a complete SOP on everything we've talked about in this month, you can go to indepreneur.io/runit. And that is the exclusive page for our How to Run Your Music Business training, which we now have available standalone on our website. Yes, exactly. So if you're already an Indie Pro member, you already... Yeah. If you're already an Indie Pro member, you already have this training in your member area along with all of our other trainings. And you can join us as an Indie Pro member if you go to indepreneur.io/runit. But if you just want to grab the standalone training and have it for life and, you know, maybe reserve the membership for a time when you've built up a little bit more productivity, that's fine. Available on the same page as both the Indie Pro membership and the standalone training. I highly recommend you check that out. It's going to break down everything we've talked about, from Asana to Slack to sprints to agile-scrum. All of that is packed into that training, and we update it with advanced skills throughout the year. So definitely something to check out. I know that if you've enjoyed this last month, you're really going to enjoy what we have to show you in that training. That does it. Let's put a pin in it, Corrin. That is Entrepreneurial Mindset and Processes Month.
I love it. What do we have planned for
by
Feb,
hook or
sir?
by crook? Recurring media, Corrin. And I'll tell you what, it is not a moment too soon, because one of the things that indies have a lot of trouble getting off the ground is the idea that they should be communicating with their audience on a weekly basis, preferably through some form of content.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. There's a couple of people we have in mind to come on as a guest next month, but there's one person in particular who is really good at recurring content. And in fact, I'm really excited to just share what some of our like agency clients are doing and what we've seen other indies doing, because this is a place where you can really get inspired. It's funny because it's almost like, because we don't have a training for this, people have had to get more fit-fun on about it and get more creative with it, which has actually bred a ton of really amazing stuff, which we know indies are amazing. They're capable of great things. But there are a couple of people who have really stepped up to the plate. So I'm excited to share some examples, as well as ease your concerns about how difficult you think this is going to be, because it doesn't have to be. It just has to be consistent, and it has to be authentic. So I'm excited for that conversation all next month. It's going to be good.
Yes. And if you want to get a head start on next month, right now, as of today, as we're recording this, I think Jack just finished up a live training, sort of like a case study review / live training in the Indie Pro member area. So if you're an Indie Pro member, you now have access to the brand new Ground Report live training from Jack, which covers recurring media, in particular live streaming, with the exact person that you were excited about maybe having on the podcast. So it's an awesome case study.
Oh, sweet.
You can learn a lot there and get a So you can get a jump start on a recurring media month by just checking that out and starting to think about how you're going to install recurring content in your business. And I'll tell you what, if you're going to be doing recurring content, like here at Indepreneur, we not only have all of our regular content, we have a YouTube video every single day. And if you're going to be doing that, all of this mindset, processes, and planning is going to help out dramatically.
Oh, for sure. It's funny because I talked to Cirque. We were talking about our content calendar for the upcoming months. And I said to Cirque, I was like, so are you good? Like, he set a goal in January to do this like content every day. I was like, are you good to keep doing that? Or is like the experiment over? He's like, no, I'm doing it. And I'm shocked. Like, I'm as surprised as some of you probably are when I see how much content is going out every day. Especially considering that that's like almost 100% Cirque. It pretty much is 100% Cirque. So you're like editing, shooting, all of it, and so like, it just goes to show like how much you can get done if you have this organized. Plus, if you are somebody who is interested in, bringing on management, bringing on a label, maybe bringing on a publisher, bringing on any of the people who would be invested in your career, the instant that you walk into any kind of table, right, where you're talking about the potential of partnering with someone, when they see that you have this structure and this mindset that you're applying to your music, it instantly has like this level of sophistication and next level because there just aren't enough musicians doing this. So it really puts a little edge in your game if you are looking for any kind of future partners. It definitely makes you look like you're a business person. You're going to be good to work with. You're going to deliver on the things you promise. And I think that's also something that's essential as well.
Yes, absolutely. Now, speaking of the YouTube channel and of content, an indie just got here who actually I think traveled from another country, and I'm about to shoot some video of him playing some awesome music. So
awesome.
check us out on YouTube. Go to indepreneur.io/runit if you want to grab this How to Run Your Music Business training, and we will see you guys next week on Creative Juice.
Really feel the East Coast, feel the West Coast, say what?